Hey, what's up everybody? You are watching Geek Level Asian, and today we're going to be comparing Star Wars Rise of Skywalker to Avatar The Last Airbender. And it probably seems like these stories have absolutely nothing in common, right? Wrong. I'm not the only one who has recognized this. And just for fun, I did a Google search to see if anyone else thought this. And I found an article on Nerdist.com comparing Kylo Ren to Prince Zuko. Now that is one of the things that I'm going to talk about, but before we get into everything, I want to make sure that everybody knows that this is a spoiler-heavy video. If you haven't seen Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, I don't want to ruin anything for you, so make sure that you're okay with continuing knowing that there's going to be a lot of spoilers. Now with that, let's begin. We're going to start with the first appearance of Rey. Rey, as we know, is being trained as a Jedi. She was trained by Luke Skywalker himself, and she's doing the same type of Jedi exercise that he used to do, where she's making the rocks float, but she's doing it in a different way. Specifically, there's a shot of her sitting and meditating, and she has the rocks floating around her, kind of orbiting around her like the rings of Saturn. Where have I seen something like this before, where stones or rocks are floating around a being in some type of orbiting motion? Oh yeah, when Aang has to fight Fire Lord Ozai, and he uses the stones to wrap around him in an orbit-like fashion. Now you could say I'm reaching here, and maybe I am. So we mentioned Fire Lord Ozai, let's talk about him for a minute. Ozai himself is an older generational villain, right? Whose ancient ways of thinking and his wisdom is used to manipulate a younger warrior, use him as a puppet. Really so that he can ultimately get what he wants so he can win his war through his eyes. Now that is exactly what we find out in Rise of Skywalker. Emperor Palpatine has been pulling the strings this whole time, and he's been using Kylo Ren as his puppet. And we see Kylo Ren, or if you want to call him Ben, has been making mistake after mistake in these movies, just trying to get on the right path, but he just can't do it. He kills his father, he made that mistake, and then Rey, he asks for her hand, but he wants her to basically join his First Order. He's making a bunch of mistakes, just like someone else we all know, Prince Zuko. Prince Zuko starts out as a villain, he wants to prove himself to his father, just like Kylo Ren idolizes his grandfather. And Zuko earns the trust of Qatar for a moment, and you think that he's gonna become a good guy, only to succumb to his villain self. And then it makes it harder for him to earn their trust again when he decides, you know what, I do want to join the Avatar and be a good guy. It's a very similar plotline, and hey, I'm not saying that these are the only two movies that have that type of story. Many stories do. But with all the similarities that there were between these two stories, let's just stay there. Now, the last and biggest connection that I want to make from Rise of Skywalker to Avatar The Last Airbender is the idea that all of the Jedi before Rey, all of their power and wisdom, live in Rey now through the Force. Going back to the beginning of the film, when she's making the rocks float around her in a very Avatar-like way, she keeps repeating the line, "Be with me." And we find out later in the film that she's trying to make a connection to all of the Jedi who lived before her, the ones that have now passed but have become part of the Force. And during her last battle against Emperor Palpatine, she starts repeating that line again, and finally you start hearing the voices of the Jedi before her. And we know that their strength is with her, and that they're there to help. This is when I was like, okay, because that is the entire idea of what an Avatar is. Yes, the Avatar can harness and use the power of all the elements, but the Avatar also has all of the strength and wisdom of every Avatar that ever came before them. Aang is able to communicate with Avatar Roku and Avatar Kyoshi and speak to them and learn from them. It's the same idea. It's the same principle. Now, I know a few Star Wars fans are probably going to say, well, Star Wars came out many years before Avatar. Yes, but you know what didn't come out before Avatar? Rise of Skywalker. And it leads me to believe that, quite possibly, J.J. Abrams might have seen Avatar The Last Airbender at some point in his life. He might be familiar with the story, has maybe even come across Google Images, I don't know. But there were just so many interesting similarities, and I was thinking about it the entire time that I was watching Rise of Skywalker. So I'm very curious to know if you happen to be a Star Wars fan and an Avatar The Last Airbender fan, did you happen to also see these similarities in the stories and the characters? Are there other stories and characters that maybe you saw a similarity to? Let me know down in the comments. I'd be very curious to know. And hey, if you've made it to this point in the video, I can only imagine that you like what you're seeing. So if you want to see more of my videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to follow me on all the social media networks. I got my Facebook back, so you could go follow me on there again. So normally I would say, may the power protect you, which is from Power Rangers, because I talk about Power Rangers quite a bit, and you can see I have a lot of that stuff on my desk. But this is a Star Wars video, and I want to say, may the Force be with you, but let's combine the two. So it would be something like, may the Force protect you.